Hey everyone, this is Shepard with another part of Ask Shepard. This will be part 4 for May 1st, 2014. This is where I answer the questions that you've asked me over the past week. Typically try to save the questions as I find interesting ones, or at least ones that should provide a little bit of help to you guys and the community at large. First question comes from... I'm not going to say that name. Hello Shepard, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate is coming out in early 2015, and that seems like a very long time. Why does it take so long to translate it, and do you think it could be delayed, released earlier? Thanks in advance. Well, it's not easy to do any sort of baseless speculation. What we can say is we know that the Japanese Monster Hunter 4, they're calling it Japanese Monster Hunter 4G, is going to be released in the fall of this year. We could probably expect that probably around October or November. Typically what will happen in cases like this is, rather than having a worldwide simultaneous release, for whatever reason, because while that game is just getting its final amount of polish then, there may be content added last minute. For that reason, it's pretty reasonable to assume that whoever is working on the localization of this game would probably need a little bit more time. Not only that, but sometimes there are bugs and things like that are found. Could it be delayed or released earlier? Well, they gave spring 2015. If I were to be betting on anything, I would assume, March 2015, April 2015, if only because those have been the dates that have almost always been released in the past. Go back, check the Wikipedia page, almost without fail. It's been within those 2 months. Chris Wells asks, sometimes you'll do a jump attack, cause a flinch, but not get a ride-off because the hunter was too far away. Can you immediately try to re-ride the monster, or must you wait for the cooldown timer before you can try again? This is a quick one to answer, only because you've seen it so many times in my videos. The answer is no, you cannot immediately re-ride the monster. If you get the flinch off but don't get the ride timer seems to be reset. The only thing that I haven't quite determined yet is that flinch timer, or is that flinch tolerance increased as time goes on? As best I can tell, no. I think it's just a flat marker of, if the monster is rideable, it's rideable. Flinch them and be next to them, and you'll initiate the ride. Black COC asks, on which DS are you currently playing Monster Hunter 4, and are you using the Circle Pad Pro? I'm currently using just a normal-sized, crystal white Japanese 3DS that has been modded through 3tscapture.com. Wasn't necessarily the cheapest option, but I had some credit on PlayAsia that I wanted to use, and so it kind of worked out for me in regards to that. Whydude16 asks, is using a bow instead of a bowgun, light or heavy, more economically efficient? This is a really interesting question. Part of it comes down to, what is your time worth? For my money, at least what I've seen in most Monster Hunter games, I'm able to get a much faster clearing time with a bowgun as opposed to a bow. Now, if you were to compare ammo to ammo, of course a heavy bowgun is going to be a lot more ammo efficient than a light bowgun, if only because it's going to be doing more damage. In terms of comparing a bow directly to either type of bowgun, though, I don't know. Using normal 2-shots, they're nearly free. I don't think it's ever going to be a major expense. The only time you ever start getting into major economical issues when you're using a heavy bowgun is kind of late in G rank, when you're using up a bunch of Pierce level 3 shots, Pierce 2 shots, or especially when you're status gunning and Crag and clutch shotting. That can be very expensive. On the flip side though, normally when you're doing these quests, you're getting so many monster parts and you're getting so much money in the higher in the quests where you're going to be doing that sort of statusing that it's really not going to be consequential at all. I guess if you're super poor though, you can't even afford normal 2-shots though, go ahead and use a bow. They're technically free, but that would never be the reason why I would use it. Spoony Gundam asks, do you expect the new Frontier Tantra weapons to show up in the main game eventually? Or do you see it staying MMO exclusive, just acting as an additional draw to get people to play those games? At first I was really excited about the Tonfas. I really liked the idea of a fast, mobile, possibly impact-based weapon. But for those of you that have not yet seen them, The videos I've seen of tonfas does not make them really seem all that interesting. That kind of really follows that same Monster Hunter Frontier creed of, yeah, it's kind of Monster Hunter, but it's not really fun to use. And tonfas kind of fit in that because it seems like if you'd ever used I think they're called Kutsuragi in Tokiden, it's a lot like that, where you're constantly bouncing up and down off of a monster, hitting over and over again. The only issue is this is not Tokiden. Getting hit should matter. You shouldn't be able to instantly air dash recover. Likewise, you shouldn't be able to hover directly above a monster more or less completely out of harm's way. So I don't think they're going to come to the main series. I believe it'll remain MMO exclusive, and if I had any hope, it would actually remain that way. I have not had yet time to participate in the Stone Soup tournament. I don't think I would be that good in it. I love the game. I've ascended in Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup twice, and I don't know. I might leave it at that. It's hard, especially because it's changed so much recently. Okay, Bareth Hunter 80 asks kind of a long question. He's asking, if you're using Pierce Shot or a Pierce type bow charge, what sort of multiplier are you getting for the hits? And it kind of comes down to, and again, if you've watched my tutorial on bows for Monster Hunter Tri-Ultimate, you'll get kind of the same answer, in that each hit will do the same amount of damage, assuming that you don't get any sort of distance multiplier. So just for instance, Pierce level 1 can hit up to 10 times at 10% damage with each time. Right? Likewise, Pierce 2 can hit 4 times, up to 9% damage each time. It's just a matter of how many times you're going to hit. If the first hit was a critical, everything will be a critical. I'm assuming that if it's a big enough monster and you're using Pierce 3 shots, that the distance multiplier might change as it's traveling through the monster. I think that's about it. Hopefully I answered that question okay. Anthony Gomez says, "Hey, Shepard, me and my brother wanted to know if high raw damage is better to bring than good elemental damage. It's kind of been a debate for a while." Well, first off, at basically every point in the game, or at least certainly once you've reached high rank in any of the games, you're normally going to have access to elemental weapons that are the same rarity and roughly the same damage as raw weapons, right? If you do not have a proper elemental weapon against a monster, like say they're really, really weak to fire and you're only using their secondary weakness, like say thunder, it's not going to be necessarily as good as using the highest raw damage weapon. And part of the reason is just elemental at the very beginning of each attack that you do is immediately multiplied by 10% of the damage you would normally be doing. It just is not a huge portion of the damage you do. That being said, there are many monsters where if you're not hitting them in their weakest spot, the elemental damage will actually do more damage combined than if you just did that only on the high raw. My opinion, it's kind of boring to go in everything with just a really good raw weapon, barring certain special circumstances. So I like to use elemental weapons just because they're there. I don't like to just leave things aside because they're not 100% super ideal. I'm going to use things because, I'm here to hunt monsters and make things out of them, not hunt monsters and hunt monsters and hunt monsters. So, high raw damage, yes, probably technically better in most scenarios if you're only allowed to get one weapon. In terms of being absolutely effective, well, if you have the right elemental, probably a little bit better. And probably better just to use because it's more fun. Alright, Kino Notabi asks, how much damage does a ride attack do? If you can compare it to some other attack. If it's weak, I'd assume it's just another way to knock monsters over so you or your team can get some precise hits in, like when you KO a monster or flash a monster flying out of the air. Well, of course there's always that advantage. Once you've ridden a monster, you have about half an hour of a KO timer, normally about 5 seconds to actually attack the thing. I think if you'll watch the videos, you will see that when I ride a monster, there are many times where I'll hit them one more time and they'll just die right away. I can't say for certain how much damage it's doing, but it is significant, at least that of probably at least 2 large barrel bomb pluses. I'm not sure if it scales between weak monsters and stronger monsters in terms of them taking more or less damage, in terms of like a percentage of their life. At the very least, it's almost always helpful to ride a monster twice, if only because usually most monsters now have some sort of back brake that can only easily be broken if you ride them. Ding Dong Po asks, how do you control the camera with the 3DS? Do you use a classic controller Pro? I've always used the claw with the PSP, but I just don't know what to do with the 3DS. Is it possible to only use the lock-on system and ignore camera controls? Well, I think there were a lot of people that were really concerned with Monster Hunter coming to the 3DS, especially because it's really difficult, if not impossible, to do the standard claw controls. That being said, I'm actually really comfortable playing on the 3DS now, and in some cases, I almost even prefer it to using the Classic Controller Pro. What I do is kind of frowned on by certain people in the community. I do take full advantage of the lock-on camera. Part of the reason is you can very easily swing your camera directly towards the monster. It's actually faster doing it that way than rotating the camera yourself. Aside from that, I use the largest D-pad image on the bottom screen that I can, and I use that to kind of do some fine-tuned precision of moving the camera left and right, up and down. The only time this kind of really works against me is occasionally I'll be using the bottom screen for something else, like in the recent Gravios videos I was combining large barrel bomb pluses. Occasionally I'd be doing that, and then I'd have to try and move the camera, but I wouldn't be able to because there's a different screen up. So in that way it's a little bit of a disadvantage. All other times it's kind of just convenient. Now Daniel asks, are you going to upload high rank? And if you are, what weapons are you going to use? This is something I've been thinking about for a while. Now that we know Monster Hunter 4G is coming out in the fall, I'm certainly going to have time to go ahead and play through the game even more so into G rank. So certainly G rank is going to be seeing different weapon usage. That being said, once I've completed the game in low rank, there's a good chance I will be entering the high rank guild quests, and if I do that, I probably will just go ahead and switch over to at least a different variety of weapons. It may not be the exact other set of weapons. I might retain some and still exclude others if I don't think they're going to be very interesting. Switch axe. But aside from that, yeah, I think I probably will do high rank at least up until Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate or 4G is released. So still about 5 months away, so still plenty of time for more videos to be made and released. Dratika asks, when a monster lays down to become infected, does it take damage while it's lying down, or do you have to wait for it to get back up and start attacking it again? This is kind of the same thing as like a Gypceros is playing dead. You may have seen me killing one in one of the previous Ask Shepard videos. In regards to that, I think you can do plenty of damage to them. I think you could even start queuing up various effects such as KO or different statuses. They just aren't going to be able to be fully inflicted until the monsters actually become fully feral or fully infected. Okay, so that's just about all the time I have for today. Thanks for asking your questions. Again, if you want to ask more questions, the easiest place to post them is here. I'm always going to check this previous video or the video you're watching now before I create the next one. So if I haven't asked it in the past, don't feel bad. Go ahead and spam it again. I will get around to it eventually, hopefully. But again, until next time, this is Shepard saying good luck and have a good hunt. Oh, and do that like and subscribe thing. Again, I ask you to do it on this video only once a week, so if you haven't done it already, please do. Thanks.